When a woman comes to you with her problems, she's not always looking for answers. She isn't asking you to fix her world. Most of the time, she's asking something deeper. She's asking if you can hold your ground when she cannot. She's asking if your presence is strong enough to steady her storm. This is where most men fail. They panic, they rush to give advice, they try to fix everything. And in doing so, they miss the truth. She doesn't want another piece of chaos. She wants an anchor. She wants to feel that you are calm when she is not. That's the test. As a man, your role is not to drown with her when she sinks. Your role is to remain solid, to be the one thing she can lean on without fear that it will collapse. That is the foundation of masculine strength. And that is what Stoicism has been teaching men for centuries. The ancient Stoics didn't talk about women the way modern dating coaches do, but they understood people, emotions, power, and self-control. They understood that the real strength of a man isn't measured by how loud he talks or how much he can lift. It's measured by how steady he stays when storms rise. In this video, I'll give you 7 truths you need to understand about a woman's emotional nature and how to respond like a grounded, stoic man. Each truth will sharpen your frame, build your discipline, and separate you from the reactive men who fold under pressure. And before we dive in, subscribe to Stoic 24 and hit the bell icon. This is where men sharpen men. No sugarcoating, no fake advice, only truths that build power. Now let's begin. Number 1. She's not asking for a fix, she's testing your frame. When a woman comes to you with her struggles, the natural reaction for most men is to jump into problem-solving mode. You hear her say, "My friend betrayed me," and immediately you respond with, "Cut her off. She's not worth your time." Or she says, "I'm stressed at work," and you quickly offer, "Maybe you should take a break or find another job." On the surface, this feels logical. You think you're being useful, that you're giving her solutions to ease her pain. But in reality, this is not what she's asking for. Most of the time, she already knows what the logical solution is. What she truly wants is not your quick advice, but your presence. She wants to see if you can sit with her in the middle of her emotional storm without flinching, without running away, and without trying to dominate the moment by fixing it. Here's the hard truth most men miss. A woman's venting is not a technical problem to be solved. It's a test of your emotional stability. She's looking at how you react under pressure. Do you get frustrated because you don't understand why she keeps repeating the same story? Do you feel restless because your advice isn't taken? Do you lose your patience because you think she's being dramatic? If you do, you fail the test. Because what she's truly measuring is not your intelligence, but your strength. Can you remain grounded when she is not? Can you keep your frame steady when hers is shaking? That's the real challenge. Leadership in a relationship is not about fixing every crack the second it appears. Leadership is about being the one thing that doesn't break when everything else does. When you remain calm, when you breathe slowly, when you listen without judgment, you're showing her something no quick solution ever could. You're showing that you're unshakable. And paradoxically, that's what makes her feel safe. She doesn't need a man who scrambles to fix every small problem. She needs a man whose silence speaks louder than words. She needs a man who doesn't panic when she does. That's why your frame is everything. Frame means your emotional center, your ability to remain who you are no matter what's happening around you. If you break your frame, she loses trust. But if you hold your frame, even in silence, you gain her respect. In that moment, your calm presence is more powerful than any solution you could ever give. Number 2, the strength to listen without losing yourself. Women often open up because they need to release the emotional weight they carry. It might be about work, family, or a conflict with a friend. Sometimes it's about something small, other times it's something deeply painful. In these moments, What she is really looking for is not a man who will take that weight and put it on his own back, but a man who is strong enough to hear her, remain grounded, and not collapse under the pressure of her emotions. Many men confuse empathy with becoming her emotional twin. They believe that to show care, they must mirror her sadness, reflect her tears, or dive headfirst into her storm. But when you do this, you stop being her anchor. You become another passenger on the sinking ship, and that is not what she wants. Respect slowly fades when a man loses himself in a woman's emotions, because instead of being a source of stability, he becomes a reflection of her chaos. She doesn't want a mirror. She wants a wall, not a cold, lifeless wall that ignores her feelings, but a solid one that doesn't break down under pressure. She wants a man who can hear her fears, her complaints, even her irrational moods, and still stand steady. A man who can say through his energy, "I'm here. I'm not shaken. I'm not lost." That kind of presence builds trust. That kind of presence makes her feel safe. The ancient Stoics understood this dynamic well. Seneca once said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That's exactly what happens when you start living inside her emotions. You begin to imagine her problems as your own, you amplify the pain, and you start carrying storms that were never meant for you. A Stoic man knows how to resist this pull. He listens, he understands, he may even give comfort, but he does not drown. He knows that if he falls, she loses the very strength she was looking for. To be masculine in this context is not to ignore her, nor is it to become absorbed by her. It is to stand tall in the middle, to be solid enough to handle her words, yet disciplined enough not to make them your identity. When she sees this in you, she knows she can return to you, because you are not another weight. You are the ground she can walk on. Number 3. Emotional control is real masculine power. Many men are raised to believe that their worth is measured by their looks, their money, or their charm. Society tells them that if they have enough status, enough physical appeal, or enough charisma, they will win the respect of women. But the truth is much simpler and much harder. None of those things matter if you cannot control your emotions. A man with millions in his account, muscles in his frame, or words on his tongue can still lose everything if he is reactive, impulsive, and emotionally weak. Respect does not survive in the hands of a man who cannot master his inner state. Emotional control is the dividing line between being respected and being dismissed. Women instinctively test this. When she vents, complains, or throws her emotions at you, she is not always seeking an answer. She is watching how you respond. Without saying a word, her energy is asking you a silent question. Can you handle this? If you panic, if you raise your voice, if you become defensive, or if you shut down, you fail the test. You show her that her emotions have more control over you than you do. And the moment she feels this, respect starts to slip. She doesn't need another man who loses himself. She needs a man who can remain whole, even in the face of fire. The man who can breathe, stay calm, and respond with discipline earns trust without asking for it. His calmness is not weakness. It is leadership. She feels safe because he doesn't crumble under pressure. She knows he can guide because he can guide himself. Emotional discipline is not about ignoring feelings or pretending they don't exist. It is about mastery. It is about choosing not to be dragged by every mood, every argument, every storm. It is about holding the line within yourself so that no outside chaos can shake you from your ground. Marcus Aurelius said you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. This is why emotional discipline is everything. Without it, you will always be a slave to the moods of others. You will always be at the mercy of her storms, her doubts, and her tests. With it, you become unshakable. You become the man whose presence speaks louder than words. You become the man who leads, not through control, but through calm, steady mastery of himself. That is real masculine power. Number 4. Stop seeking validation. She's testing your value. This is where so many men collapse without even realizing it. When a woman shares her emotions or vents her frustrations, countless men instantly switch into performance mode. They begin to say exactly what they think she wants to hear. They nod at every sentence, agree with every complaint, and exaggerate their empathy. On the surface, it looks like care, but underneath it's a desperate hunt for approval. It's the behavior of a man who is still begging for praise like a child waiting for his mother's approval. And the truth is simple. Respect dies the moment a man falls into this pattern. Because she isn't testing you to see if you will mirror her feelings. She isn't opening up to measure how fast you can adapt to her moods. She's looking to see if you already stand strong on your own. A woman wants to feel that your value doesn't depend on her validation. She wants to sense that even if she disagrees with you, even if she criticizes you, you remain solid. This is the difference between men who are respected and men who are tolerated. Epictetus once said, "If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish." This means you must learn to stand firm even when she misunderstands you, even when she calls you cold or distant. You do not bend your frame to win points. You do not trade strength for temporary approval. Because the man who resists this trap, the man who can remain calm, steady, and unshaken in the face of emotional pressure, is the man she cannot control. And paradoxically, that is the man she ends up respecting, following, and trusting the most. Number 5. Her emotions are hers, not yours. This is one of the hardest lessons for modern men to accept, because society has taught men that they must always keep their partner happy, no matter what. From a young age, men are told to be providers, protectors, and problem solvers. And while there is truth in that role, many take it to the extreme. They start believing they are personally responsible for every shift in her mood. If she is upset, they think they failed. If she is angry, they assume they caused it. If she is sad, they try to carry that sadness until it crushes them. This is not strength. This is slavery to emotion. When a man makes her feelings his responsibility, he loses his center. He starts walking on eggshells, carefully filtering every word and every action, afraid that the wrong move will set her off. Instead of being a leader, he becomes reactive. Instead of being respected, he becomes predictable. And once she senses that he is controlled by her moods, the respect begins to fade. A man who bends himself to manage her emotions is not leading. He is following her storms. The truth is simple but difficult. Her emotions are hers. They belong to her, not you. You cannot control them, and it is not your burden to carry them. Your role as a man is not to drown in her waves, but to remain the steady shore. To listen without losing yourself, to care without collapsing, to stay calm even when she is in chaos. This is what creates trust. Not because you solved her emotions, but because you proved that her emotions cannot break you. That is real masculine strength. That is the discipline of a stoic man. Number 6. Silence is not weakness, it's mastery. Most men fear silence because they equate talking with caring. They believe if they don't say the right thing, if they don't fill every pause with reassurance or explanation, she will assume they're indifferent. So they overcompensate. They talk too much, overanalyze, repeat themselves, or try to offer solutions that weren't requested. They feel pressure to prove their attention, their empathy, or their value through constant words. But this is a trap. It makes a man reactive, scattered, and weak in the face of emotional storms. Silence, when grounded in strength, communicates far more than words ever can. It shows presence without neediness. It demonstrates confidence without forcing understanding. When you remain calm, still, and silent while she expresses her emotions, she senses it immediately. She feels that you are unshakable, that you are fully present, and that you don't need validation from her or from anyone else. A firm gaze, a steady posture, and an unhurried energy speak volumes. These subtle cues signal that you are not swept around by the waves of emotion. You are the shore she can rely on. In a world that encourages men to overshare, to constantly process every feeling aloud, silence is revolutionary. Stoicism teaches restraint, not coldness. Silence is not the absence of care, it is disciplined presence. It is the choice to listen, observe, and respond only when necessary. It is the refusal to react impulsively, the refusal to lose yourself in someone else's chaos. A man who masters silence masters the space around him. He does not need to prove himself or fill the voids. He allows his energy, his steadiness, and his calm to communicate everything that words could never convey. This is the power that women recognize instinctively. When you stop talking to impress, to explain, or to reassure, she senses your strength. Your silence becomes a signal of mastery, control, and unwavering masculinity. And that is magnetic. That is respect. That is real Stoic power. Number 7. Leadership comes from steadiness, not control. Many men confuse leadership with dominance. They think to lead a woman, they must control her emotions, dictate her choices, or manage her reactions. They argue, criticize, or micromanage, believing this shows strength. But in reality, this is insecurity disguised as authority. It is a fragile attempt to prove their worth through external control rather than internal mastery. True leadership is not about bending the world to your will. It is about holding yourself firmly, consistently, and calmly, regardless of the chaos around you. It's about showing through your actions and energy that no matter what happens, you do not lose your center. A woman will test this constantly. She will cry. She will doubt. She will express frustration or anger. She may even try to provoke a reaction, consciously or unconsciously. Your strength is measured not by how much you assert over her, but by how unshakable you remain when she throws her storms at you. When you stay grounded, composed, and unwavering, she feels safety. She feels a man she can rely on, someone she can trust when life gets messy. That is the essence of respect and attraction. Women do not follow men who dominate. They follow men who are steady. They do not seek a master. They seek a man who has mastered himself. Mastery is internal. It is self-discipline, emotional control, and clarity of mind. That is what Stoicism builds in men. It trains you to act, respond, and lead without being ruled by fleeting emotions or external pressures. Your calmness becomes magnetic. Your presence becomes powerful. And when you combine discipline with empathy, action with steadiness, you become a man who is not only respected but deeply trusted. Leadership is not control. It is steadiness. It is being the rock in a world of storms. It is the core of masculine strength, the foundation upon which every healthy, lasting relationship is built. Now, let's bring it all together. If a woman tells you her problems, she's not always asking for solutions. She's asking if you can stand strong. She's asking if you can hold the frame without flinching. She's asking if you are disciplined enough to hear her chaos without becoming chaotic. That is the true test of masculinity. Not how much you control her, but how much you control yourself. Men today are being taught to over-explain, to overshare, to react to every mood. And as a result, they've lost their grounding. But you don't have to. You can be the man who listens without losing himself. The man who stays silent when silence is strength. The man who doesn't seek validation, doesn't panic, doesn't bend. The man who remains calm, steady, and respected. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, Epictetus, they all lived with storms around them. But they never let those storms dictate who they were. That is the Stoic way. That is the masculine way. And if you want to keep sharpening yourself into that kind of man, subscribe to Stoic 24 and hit the bell icon. This is your space. This is where men rise above chaos. This is where you build the strength no one can take from you.